Good afternoon, kids. Just for the new folks, when I started this channel at Dogs Are Having Fun, a couple of months ago, the Clementine's always out here with me. Mickey's around behind me here someplace, drinking out of my bird feeder, Sunshine. Copper over there eating grass. They get fed well, so I don't really do that. Anyway, the reason that I started this channel was in response to a post that I made on somebody's post about taking kids in and rescuing dogs. That's why I got 4 dogs. They're all rescues. Got them all when they were just little bitty puppies. Copper was about, over yonder, the brown one, Copper was about as big as his head is now. Clementine's about the same thing. Mickey was about 18 weeks old when we got him. Just see, there he is. Sunshine was, there she comes. She was just a few weeks, 18, 20 weeks, 22 weeks, something like that when we got her. So they've all grown up around here. And over the last 5 years, over the last 25 years, we've taken in kids that have been kicked out of their homes. It's just what we do. And we're on the verge of losing our last one, and I don't know whether we'll have another one or not. Miss Carla's got her nursing degree, and now she's waiting to take the state test, and she'll be gone by the end of the year, I think. Then we'll be back to empty house. Anyway, the reason I started was the result of that. People wanted to hear my memories. Oh, that's not it. What? What are we barking at? Each other? Huh? Just barking at each other. That wasn't the one at all. It was a memory of when I was about 9 years old. We were playing on the porch. Grandpa set us down into the pasture. You can go listen to that one. And people said I ought to tell my stories. So I started telling my stories. My stories are not getting much grip, but my dogs are. You know, cool. My dogs are not that fantastic, and I'm getting bored with dog videos, but I'll continue to do that. Anyway, today's going to be a combination of the two. Here's some memories based on my time in the military service. This is part 2 of Old Man and His Memories. If you haven't watched the first one, go watch it. I've got the potential, I've got an offer for a book, a series of books based on my service. So some of this is just pure BS, some of it is actually what we did. So if you don't like it, I'm okay with that. If it doesn't match your military service and you say, well, we never did that, well, that was your military service, not mine. Little interruption here. Some of y'all need to take a minute and do what I do. I'm sitting here watching my dogs, making sure they don't dig any holes in the yard, and I'm sipping iced tea. I got my iced tea glass right here. It's a warm afternoon, so I'm sitting out here in the backyard sipping iced tea. You need to find out whatever your sipping iced tea is. Got hair. One of the things about getting old, you get hair in your nose and it itches, so that's why I keep picking at my nose. So it's my nose, don't worry about it. Anyway, this is part 2 of Old Man and His Memories. Go back and watch the first one, then come back and watch this one. We had rescued a young lady, and this is the point at which we get back to our to the base and the post in Panama. Once we landed, the girl was turned over to some civilian on the post. Our equipment was inventoried and turned over to Porter. Porter was our supply guy that kept track of our equipment. We could almost always leave some critical expensive piece of equipment out of the pile, and he'd never even notice until later. This particular time, we kept an M14 out. He counted the brass, complained about how much heat he would take from the armorer because we'd wasted so much ammo. We didn't fire a shot unless we were going to take somebody down, and we hit about 99% of the time, so we didn't waste ammo. He thought we'd expended too many rounds on this mission. He never even blinked an eye at only having 5 rifles instead of 6. With the right clerk, it was just that easy to steal from the military. Imagine how embarrassed he'd be when he saw a tree standing there with an M14. The fact that we could do this proves just how much he trusted us. He trusted us to turn everything in. And we earned that trust, incidentally. We dealt completely honestly with everyone that we came into contact with. Without trust, who are you? Wait a minute. He turned his head. Had a cute picture of Mickey. He's staring back at the back of the woods behind us, laying down here at my feet. Now he's just watching the other dogs go back in the house. After turning everything in and seeing it safely loaded into our transport plane, we loaded up for the trip home ourselves. As we were getting ready to pull the load ramp up, a Jeep comes screaming right at us, horns blaring. Out of nowhere, 6 handguns appeared. A team like ours is always prepared to defend ourselves and each other. Death comes quickly when you're unprepared. We delivered death when they weren't prepared. Because the driver didn't know protocol, he came screaming right up to the ramp and screeched to a halt. This Air Force mutt had the audacity to be upset that he had weapons trained on him. If it had been in a civilian airport, if it had been on a civilian airport, we probably would have unloaded on him. In the Jeep was a girl that we'd rescued. After a shower and a clothing change, Valerie, as I came to know her, was beautiful. I fell in love immediately. I didn't realize it at the time, but she was to become my very best friend and wife. Now, 51 years later, she's in the house working, I'm sitting out here drinking iced tea, and she puts up with me. So why was she sitting in the Jeep in front of us? She was there to be escorted back to the United States. As it happened, she was from Waco, which is just down the road from our home base at Fort Hood. There'd been threats on her life because her captors had been eliminated. How did they know who she was? These groups were not interactive. They sprung up and disappeared just as quickly. The bottom line was they didn't know who she was, but some colonel had decided to not take chances. She'd ride back to Fort Hood safe with us. Her parents would pick her up on post. An Army C-130 Hercules is not built for comfort. On the upside, this Air Force crew was this air crew was Air Force Reserve guys fulfilling their monthly flying training. They gave us a much easier takeoff and landing than some of the other pilots we flew with. You pilot your gear onto a pallet. Some loadmaster threw a net over it, strapped it down, and tied it to the pallet, and then said pallet would then be placed in the most inconvenient spot in the bay of the aircraft. We'd then climb aboard and find whatever comfortable spot we could amongst the cargo, find a place to lay or sit down. Hours and lots of ear-popping later, we'd land. My hearing aid guy says that my ears are bad because we didn't use proper hearing protection at the range. If he'd ever traveled on one of these aircraft, he'd know why I can't hear well now. Back to the story. The Air Force hadn't expected a civilian, so Miss Valerie was offered no comfort at all for this trip. No drinks, no food, no stewardess, not even a cushion to sit on. Since she didn't recognize any of us, she was lost. We had not had the chance to shower or change clothes like she'd obviously done in the last 2 hours. We still smelled of 3 days in the jungle. We still had our face camo on as well. Because she was still traumatized by her experience, she wasn't ready to make choices or decisions. Remember Harold? Harold was not a people person. He reached out to her. Come sit with me. Like a puppy dog, she went to him and snuggled up as close to him as she could. The inside of a C-130 is loud. Even by shouting, you cannot easily hold a conversation. In spite of the noise, soon she fell asleep. Because of the stress that we'd been under, we soon followed. The ride home is always the time to let down your walls. Being in a combat environment for even a few days is extremely stressful. Once you're out of danger, you begin to relax. All that adrenaline and energy goes completely away. You have zero energy. Now I wonder how we functioned after a mission at all, and how we functioned being on such a low energy level afterwards. Sleep finally comes easily. Loadmaster came and woke us up minutes before the touchdown at Fort Hood. As we exited the aircraft, Miss Valerie took each man's hand and thanked us for putting our lives at risk for rescuing her. I never told her for years what we did or how we operated. Our lives were almost never really in danger. Unfortunately, almost is relative. Within months, Captain Wright, although known as Tall, would be dead. A few months later, Seal would be gone too. 2 days after we got home, Paige and I went into Killeen to get some real food. Being a country boy and not knowing better, Army chow was pretty good, but sometimes you just need a change. There was a restaurant in town that had a buffet. You went down the buffet line and picked out whatever you wanted. What a way to eat. 5 or 6 different meats, 5 or 6 different potato dishes, several corn, 3 or 4 bean dishes, okra, boiled or fried, 3 or 4 different squash choices, and so on, lots of salads. What a way to eat. Libby's was the name of the place, and they were the best. We loaded up our trays and started to stuff ourselves. In the meantime, Valerie had gone with her parents, had gone to the public information office on post and tracked her rescuers down. She and her parents then went to our unit to find us. Harold had seen her in the company headquarters and recognized her and went up to make sure that she was taken care of. The team, minus Paige and I, were rounded up for another round of thanks. I later learned that, like me, he had fallen in love with her too. In those days, though, an African-American man did not date a white woman. He knew where we went to eat when we was off post, so he loaded up and brought them to find us. Just as I had, she would explain later, there was some sort of connection when we met. She talked Daddy into coming with her to help find me. Daddy, I just know. The fact that they lived in Waco, just an hour or so from the post, helped. It was not a long drive to come and find us and thank us, and coincidentally to reconnect. As I'm sitting there at the table, suddenly there's a hand on my shoulder. Feeling her hand on my shoulder and looking up to see her face caused this old country boy to turn into a sniveling mess. Fortunately for me, Paige recognized my complete breakdown and came to my rescue. You folks should go through the line, get some food, and join us. Soon they were seated with us, and I hadn't yet regained my ability to speak to a beautiful woman whose station in life was way above mine. Fortunately for me, her mama saw the way she looked at me, and even with my diminished capacity, the looks I returned. Daddy wasn't as impressed. He wanted his baby to marry a college boy with a future, not some GI that might be dead next month. I'd never before nor since had such an uncomfortable meal. I kept food in my mouth so that I didn't have to talk much. Paige really bailed me out that day. It was decided that the team should come to a thank you party at their house the next weekend. Captain Wright, Paige, and Harold were uncomfortable with the idea. All had grown up in Mississippi and were not comfortable going to the rich white folks' house to meet a bunch of other white folks. Uh-oh. What you got, huh? I bet I don't even have it on them. There we go. Doesn't take much to distract them from protecting the house. But then you got Miss Sunshine still over there. She's still on watch. That's the Great Pyrenees. These two don't care. She's still kind of watch. She's looking for squirrels now. They'll come down the fence there. They'll come down the trees, down the house, down the fence, and she likes to chase them. Captain Wright, Paige, and Harold were uncomfortable with the idea. All had grown up in Mississippi and were not comfortable going to the rich white folks' house to meet a bunch of other rich white folks. No one had realized just how uncomfortably they were except Eugene, Valerie's dad. He was Miss Valerie's dad and had grown up in Mobile, Alabama, so he had a better feel about segregation. He did a fantastic job that night of making her feel at home. Mickey's joined the chase now. He's wanting to play. He's barking at him for being too loud and rambunctious. He's almost 10 years old. He's grown into a grumpy old man, don't want to fool with kids. And then you got the two of them just wanting to play. Late in the evening, Eugene led me to a quieter part of their backyard. Listen, Edgar, I can see how Valerie looks at you and how you look at her. No offense, boy, but I want my baby girl to marry a college boy and have a life. I don't want her marrying some GI and winding up with 4 or 5 kids before she's 30. I hope you understand. This stuff ends right here. Yes, sir, I do understand, I responded. I told him that whole having kids thing was what my sisters had done. I was the youngest of 6. I knew poverty. I had 0 plans of having kids until I got out of the Army, and maybe a few years beyond that. I let him know right away that I was not a good fit for her. I was a dirt poor redneck white trash boy from Brown County, Texas. How could I ever be good enough for such a fine woman like her? You could see the relief in his eyes. The conversation had 0 effect on her. The next Saturday afternoon, some of us were sitting in the shade outside of the barracks. Some were drinking beers and smoking cigarettes. Suddenly, we heard the most beautiful sound of a muscle car pulling into the parking lot. I don't remember what kind of car it was, but it was a yellow convertible and sounded fantastic. Suddenly, Miss Valerie stands up in the front seat, honks the horn, and waves for me to come out. All the guys were used to prostitutes, so they all presumed that she was there looking for a date. Everybody jumped at once. Nope, she had come to get me to go for a drive. Now, I painted a picture of a very forward young lady. She wasn't. She just knew what she wanted and went for it. We were not accustomed to girls being this forward back in the 70s. By the end of the afternoon, we both knew that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives with each other. That fact was not discussed that day. It came out in discussions years later when telling our kids about how we had met. And that ends that part of the story. Now, kids, if you've watched this far, leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about my writing. Am I a writer, or am I just, we have a saying in Texas, we're just pissing into the wind. I need to know, because I want to know whether I'm wasting time or whether I'll just give this up and go on about life with videos of my dogs and other memories. This is going to have some other childhood memories in it, because that's the way I'm going to extend the pages of the book. I don't have that many war stories to tell, and I don't have that many war stories to make up, so I'm going to throw some memories in here. For instance, when I was 8 years old, went down to Uncle Al's house to help him with the bull roundup. In the summer, you put the bulls separate from the cows. That way you can predict when the cows are going to get pregnant and when missed it. You can predict when the cows are going to get pregnant, and that way you have calves. You don't have calves in the middle of the winter. So I went down there for 2 weeks to help him with the bull roundup. Hey. And we had about 20, 25 bulls together. And one of them starts to cut away from the herd, run up the edge of the barn. Now, I rode an old mare named Pearl. Pearl was for the kids and the grandkids to ride, and I was only 9 years old, 10 years old. I wasn't that great a rider yet, although I'd spent a good deal of time on horseback. My plan was to run ahead of the bull and turn him back, and then I would turn Pearl around, and we'd go back towards the bulls. Now, Pearl was a cow horse when she was younger. So when Pearl got up to the bull, she did what a good cutting horse would do. She turned towards him to chase him back into the herd. When that happened, I immediately went falling over her shoulder, and she turned back under me. That's the only thing that kept me from getting thrown off that day. Otherwise, I'd just been a 10-year-old in the dirt and with Uncle Alf laughing at me. He did get a good laugh out of it. And he was proud that I'd had the plan, and being proud of me wasn't something that I heard much at home. I always heard how worthless I was, never going to amount to anything. Look at me now. Sitting out here drinking iced tea, got a YouTube channel with 102 subscribers, got a potential book offer. Woohoo! Life is good. y'all leave me a comments, leave me a like. If I get 100 views, I'll get 2 or 3 likes. That's kind of disappointing. And for these stories, I get about no likes. So y'all let me know how I'm doing. I need to know whether I'm doing good or whether I'm just wasting my time. Y'all have a good afternoon.